Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Evelyn Curlee, and I'm a travel agent. I've been selling travel for 8 years, and a big part of my business are the escorted groups. It seems like people really enjoy traveling with a group, and I'm excited to share information with you tonight about a group that I'm escorting in late May. We're going to the Holy Land, and we're going to have a Zoom meeting here. Bethany Barbary from ETS Tours is going to be talking to us, answering all your questions. I'm sure you have lots, and providing a little more detail about our trip to the Holy Land. I just was there in December with ETS Tours and had a great time, and I just want to share that experience with as many of you as possible. So I hope you enjoy the presentation, and if you have any questions, I'm sure either Bethany or I can answer them for you.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here tonight. I'm really excited to share the Holy Land Classic trip with you. It was so much fun getting to travel with Lane recently. And so she's going to have some other pictures and wonderful things that she will share with you guys about her experiences as well. To tell you a little bit about my company, Educational Travel Services. So we were founded 50 years ago by a United Methodist minister who, after finishing seminary, got the opportunity to travel to Israel and Jordan. And actually, back then, he could go through Syria and got to go through Lebanon and see all the sites from Acts. And he saw how it changed his ministry when he came back and started it. And so, that thought kind of stayed with him for a little while. And then he's like, oh, I think this would be amazing if other pastors and other Christians got this opportunity to go see the Holy Land that they've read about in their Bible all these years and actually really connect it and kind of get the full 3D picture. So we are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, and we're really excited about it. And I'm going to switch over to a PowerPoint and share some information with you guys. So for all of you that have already signed up that are going in May, or those of you who are thinking about it, we're going to talk about the Holy Land Classic Tour today. To make up a little time, and because it's not going to record very well, we're going to skip the video, and I'm going to go right into talking about the itinerary. So day one is going to be everybody just flying out. I know a lot of you are going to be flying out from the Nashville area. So you're going to leave from there and then most likely have a connection somewhere in the Northeast. We're also looking at the possibility of flying you guys internationally from Atlanta. So you're going to end up arriving, because it's about 12 to 14 hours once you leave the US for your flight to Tel Aviv. So you're going to end up arriving with the time difference sometime in the late afternoon, like 2, 3, 4 p.m. So we will pick you guys up there, and then we're going to whisk you up to Tiberias. So that's where you will stay your first night, is there in Tiberias on the Sea of Galilee. Your very first day of actual touring is going to be day 3. This is a lovely picture of the Jordan River baptism site there at Yardenit. And so these were some wonderful people that decided to get baptized when I was just there in December. But your big highlights for today, besides the opportunity to do a Jordan River baptism or just remember your baptism, is you guys will get to do a boat ride out on the Sea of Galilee. And it's so much fun, and you can have a time of worship and sing hymns as you sail across. And you're also going to get to visit Capernaum today. So Capernaum, they have uncovered a 1st century synagogue that dates back to the time of Christ, as well as they have uncovered what they believe to be Peter's mother-in-law's home. So you can see that in the beautiful chapel that they've built there as well. You're also going to go up to the Mount of Beatitudes, and you probably will finish your last site for the day will be Magdala usually. So this is another 1st century synagogue that they've uncovered that was actually dedicated to women. And there's also a lovely chapel there if you get the opportunity to see it as well. So you're going to stay another night here up in Tiberias. And then tomorrow, you're going to go out to Cana. And in Cana, they have a beautiful Franciscan wedding chapel. So for anyone that would like to take time to renew their wedding vows, if you're traveling as a couple, it's a beautiful place to do that and to remember Jesus's first miracle of the water into wine. After that, we're going to go off to Nazareth, and you'll get to see the Chapel of the Annunciation built over the site where Mary was visited by the angel, and she told him that she was pregnant. Then you're going to go all the way out to the coast and visit Caesarea by the Sea. So Caesarea by the Sea, this is where Peter and John and Barnabas and Paul, many of them would have taken off for their missionary journeys because it was a major Roman city and a huge port. And it's really interesting when you're visiting it and you can see how they constructed, even back then, this man-made waterway to be able to get to the port. There's a huge Roman theater there, and there's also an aqueduct that goes all the way along the beach as well. You're also going to visit Megiddo, which you can see a picture of here on the PowerPoint. So Megiddo is really interesting as well. They have dug down and found 20 different cities that have been built on the spot. And it's always been a very important to trade because this was on the Silk Road and the main trading road, even back into the time of King David. So whoever controlled this spot would control the region and they would control all the trade. So what's interesting about Megiddo is it's also known as the Valley of Armageddon, and it's surrounded by this beautiful valley full of farmland now. But when you're reading the book of Revelations, it's talking about the Valley of Armageddon. They pictured it as being there at Megiddo because there had been so many battles all throughout history to control this important trade route and in this city and in that valley. So it's a really neat connection and an amazing archaeological site. You're going to end today. You will have made it all the way to Jerusalem, where you're going to stay for the rest of the trip. So on day 5, we're going to kind of take you guys out into the wilderness. We're going to take you over to Bet Shean, which you can see here in this picture has a huge Roman theater and would have been a really thriving city in the time of Jesus. And with Jesus and Joseph having been carpenters, there was a lot of construction during his lifetime. So it's very possible that he and his father could have both done some work in Bet Shean as carpenters for all the construction. Then after this, we'll take you out to Jericho and you'll get to see the ancient city ruins there, as well as the Mount of Temptations. And that's usually also where you'll have your lunch stop that day. Really, really good mixed grill barbecue restaurant usually. And then we'll finish up the day with going out to Qumran. So Qumran is the home of the Essenes. So they date back to the 2nd century and the second time the temple was destroyed by the Romans and during the Jewish revolt time. So the Essenes were a monastic community, only men, only male animals. And so they lived out there and they would write down what would become the Torah on scrolls. And they ended up hiding some of these scrolls that contained the Torah, or what we also would know as the Old Testament, in some clay pots. And they put them in the caves that are all around here out by the Dead Sea. So what the Essenes wrote became what we know as the Dead Sea Scrolls. And you can actually get to see those also in the Israel Museum if you've got some extra time in Jerusalem and want to go over and actually see some of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But it's a really neat archaeological site and some neat history about how we've been able to connect and see that even what they were writing in the 2nd century matches the Old Testament that we have today. So on the next day, we're going to do Bethlehem and a little bit in Jerusalem today. So you'll go out to Bethlehem and you'll get to visit the Church of the Nativity. So you can see it there, and you'll get to go down into the grotto that's underneath. And it's a little cave area. And so back in Jesus's time, many of the animals and stuff were kept in caves below houses or dugout areas. So when you're thinking about Mary and Joseph having had Jesus there in a stable, it most likely would have been a cave very similar to this. And the Church of the Nativity is one of the oldest churches actually still in the Israel-Palestine area. Its original foundations actually date all the way back to the time of Queen Helena. So she converted her son, the Emperor Constantine, to Christianity. He gave her a bunch of money. She came back to Israel and she started building churches and sites where they strongly suspected different events took place. So the Church of the Nativity, there's been a church on that site since her time. they've changed it a little bit since then, but it's still on the same spot where she believed it happened. We'll also take you out to the Shepherd's Field, and they have a beautiful little chapel there as well. And you can kind of get this bird's eye view out over modern Bethlehem while you're up there. And you're going to end the day with the option to visit Yad Vashem. So Yad Vashem is the National Holocaust Museum. It has some really moving and beautiful exhibits. If you think that might be too intense for you, you don't have to go inside and go through the exhibits. They also have beautiful sculpture gardens and all kinds of things you can see outside as well if you think it might be a little too intense. Then tomorrow, you're going to wander through the Old City. So the picture you see in the background, that was our wonderful cruise planners group of agents that we all went and visited. And these are the teaching steps. So these are some of the original steps that led up to the Temple Mount. But you're going to probably start your day off going up to the Mount of Olives, and you will walk down from the top of Mount of Olives down the Palm Sunday path like Jesus would have as you were heading into Jerusalem. Along the way, you'll get to visit the Garden of Gethsemane. And then we're going to take you into the Old City where you'll get to do the Western Wall, which is kind of just on the other side of the temple from the teaching steps. You'll get to go through the teaching steps here in kind of the City of David area. And then conditions permitting, if everything's going fine, we'd love to take you up to the Temple Mount as well. So you should be able to get the opportunity to go up there. Then we'll end the day visiting Mount Zion. You'll get to see the home of Caiaphas, and you get to go down into the dungeon where Jesus would have been kept before he was taken to Pontius Pilate. And you'll also get to go and visit the upper room. So on your next day, you finally can rest if you want. We'll give you a free day. So you can have free time. You can go explore more sites in Jerusalem, since that's where you'll be staying during this time. Or for $75 per person, we do offer an optional tour that you can go out and visit Herod's mountaintop fortress that he built there at Masada, that's out by the Dead Sea. You also would have lunch included that day on this tour, and then you have usually an hour and a half to 2 hours to enjoy swimming in the Dead Sea. Then on day 9, we're finally wrapping up. It's your last day. So we'll do a walking tour of the Cardo, which this is the ancient shopping street. Dates all the way back to the time of Jesus, and there are still shopping stalls, and it's a fun stop. You'll also get to visit the Pool of Bethesda. And so they've recently just opened up more of this site. So it's a really neat time for you guys to be going in May. And after that, you'll get to go walk down the Via Dolorosa. You'll get to see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And then, there's two traditional thoughts on where Jesus was buried. So one of them is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And again, it dates back to the time of Queen Helena and when she was building churches and declaring holy spots. And so it's still a functioning Catholic church today and beautiful, and they have a tomb there. And then you're also going to probably end the day here at the Garden Tomb. So you can kind of see the picture in the background here. So the Garden Tomb, it's an amazing representation, and it's an ancient tomb, dates back to the right time. You can go inside and see what the tomb would have looked like. It's an absolutely beautiful area, and they have all kinds of little places to sit as a group, and we like to end your trip with a communion service. So depending on your flights, most likely you will be flying home tonight / very early in the morning on day 10, because most flights going back to the United States leave any time between 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning. So it's a little bit of a long day. You'll do some touring, have some time for dinner, and then you're going to scooch off to the airport and probably get there around 8, 9 p.m. so that you can get all checked in and through security for your return flight home. Which means on day 10, you will arrive back, and typically the flights with the time difference you gain and everything coming back, you're usually getting in between like 6 a.m., 8 a.m. in the morning. And so then with a short just flight back to Nashville, you should be home around lunchtime or early afternoon. So you can then go and crash and try to process all the wonderful places that you've just seen. So that's kind of your itinerary. And now I'm going to go through just some things to know before you go. So flight information and how that works when we book your flights is the information is going to be provided in a final document booklet. It's going to be a digital PDF file that Lane will share with you guys. It's going to have a confirmation number and your ticket number, so you can use either or to check in with the airport. So most airlines now aren't going to let you really check in or look at your reservation much until 24 hours in advance. And we definitely still suggest arriving at your airport for international flights about 3 hours in advance, just so you have plenty of time to get checked in, get your luggage processed, get through the TSA screenings. Typical carriers that we use to fly to Israel end up being El Al, United, American, Lufthansa. We do a little bit of Delta now and then. And so flight information, we'll usually give that to your travel advisor, in this case, Lane, about 60 to 30 days prior to the trip, so she can share it with you guys. And most international flights to Israel right now are running out of New York JFK, Newark Airport, Washington Dulles, and some out of Philadelphia. There is a flight coming back out of Atlanta that we're looking at as well if we can get group space. So for most flights, with the kind of tickets we're purchasing just in economy, you're going to be allowed a carry-on bag, a personal item, and then a checked bag. So typically it's 50 pounds is what you can take and 76 linear inches. I put 45 to 50 because Lufthansa is a little stingy and they will stick to the 45 pounds. So this will give you an idea of the kind of hotels that we're planning to use for the trip. So you've got the Royal Plaza in Tiberias, and you can see it from your rooms. You have an awesome view of the Sea of Galilee. Perfectly modern hotel. They actually just did a big renovation and redid all the rooms. So that's not even a current picture because they look even nicer and renovated now. But they're going to have hair dryers, cable TV. They have excellent Wi-Fi, all the things you would expect in a typical hotel back here. For the Olive Tree Hotel, again, they have pretty good Wi-Fi, fully air conditioned, because it will be, a little warmer, but not hot when you guys are there in May. They've got hair dryers in the room, cable TV, little coffee kits, again, kind of your standard things. The hotels are going to be where you'll have your breakfast and dinner every day, and they do serve it buffet style. So you have lots of choices, and they try to have a mix of American cuisine as well as local stuff. And one of my favorite things about when I'm in Israel is for your meals at the buffets, they will have a dozen different kinds of salads. So, if you're somebody that loves veggies and salads like me, it's absolutely amazing. And I highly recommend always getting the Turkish salad, which is fresh cucumbers that they've grown in the Judean wilderness. You will pass the cucumber farms on your way there, fresh tomatoes, and a little bit of vinegar. It's really, really good. And then you'll have baba ganoush, and there's hummus every day. There will be hummus at every meal. So I hope everyone really enjoys hummus. So now we'll talk a little bit about money. So how much money should you bring? So lunches run approximately about $20 a day. They're not included in your tour, so you just want to plan for that. And then we do recommend giving tips for the guide and your driver. All the hotel tips have been taken care of in the porterage, so they'll take care of your bags when you're arriving at the hotels and help bring them down. But for the guide and driver, if you feel they did a good job, we recommend $6 per person per day. So that'd be about $48 for this trip. And for the driver, $3 per person per day, so it's about $24. If you want to be baptized or get in the Jordan River, it's usually about $15 to use to rent a robe and use the changing facilities there at the baptism site. So if you take $300-400 in cash, that's going to be more than plenty for your trip. The dollar is accepted everywhere, so please don't lose money on the exchange rate and try to get shekels. You will get a few shekels here and there back as change. But dollar is perfectly fine. Visa and MasterCard work really well everywhere. Discover is hit or miss. Some places will take it, a lot will not. And American Express is pretty much universally not used there. So they won't accept it because they just charge too much in their fees, unfortunately. So weather in Israel is going to be really nice. It's going to mimic a little south of you guys, like a northern Florida, Georgia atmosphere. So the average in May, you're going to have highs just in the low 70s. When you're out at the Dead Sea or you're out in like the Judean wilderness where you're at a lower elevation, it may hit the upper 70s, but it's going to be quite nice. And lows at night, especially when you're in Jerusalem, may still drop into the 50s. So because of that, I recommend just good, lightweight, loose-fitting clothing and to dress in layers. So, in the morning when you're first leaving and before the sun comes out, it may be, a little chillier. So having a good, light, packable travel jacket's great. And then, as the day goes on, it gets warmer and you're outside, you can leave that jacket on the bus and just enjoy like a good long sleeve, UV protectant shirt. Comfortable walking shoes and sneakers, definitely a must. You guys will walk quite a bit, so we'll talk a little bit about that. This trip will be hard if you have walking difficulties. If you have use a cane or you like to use like collapsible walking sticks like hikers do, you can take those and, they'll provide you with some extra stability when you're going uphill a little bit at some of the archaeological sites, you're around the cobblestone and those kind of things, but you will walk quite a lot. So my advice to people is if you can walk around your neighborhood, at just a leisurely pace for 20 minutes straight, that's about the worst you're going to do on the trip for the most part, because when you're walking around sites, the guide's going to stop and explain something. Then you're going to walk a little further, they're going to stop and explain something. So, it's not like super fast paced, run. But you should be able to comfortably walk for 20 minutes without stopping. It's pretty good goal to hit. There is no reason to dress up on this trip. There's no dress up events. So just really comfortable clothing that you're going to be outside touring in all day. Skirts, dresses, and shorts are all fine. Just please make sure they're below the knee and that they also cover your shoulders, because when you're at the Western Wall or in certain churches, it's really offensive to have your knees or shoulders showing. Other than that, there's no special religious dress or anything needed. Men visiting the Western Wall, you do have to have your head covered. So if you don't have a hat with you, they'll give you a little paper kippah and you can put it on. You're going to want to bring your bathing suit and water shoes and towels if you are planning to go to the Dead Sea and Jordan River. And of course, pajamas, undergarments, and don't forget socks. So while you're not quite going in summer, you will be outside a lot and a lot of sun. So I always would recommend a hat, some sunscreen and sunglasses, or get some good UV protectant shirts. Like if any of you like to go fishing or golfing, you probably already have some, and I recommend taking those. So travel documents that you will need for this trip. You will need a passport, and it can't expire until 6 months after your return date. So that means that it can't be expiring until sometime in December, since you guys are getting ready to go here in May. So if it's going to expire before then, please do go ahead and get your passport renewed. It's taking about a month to a month and a half to renew them right now if you don't pay for expedited service, so you guys still have time. If you're US and Canadian passport holders, you don't have to worry about any kind of special visa process. You'll get visas upon arrival. And it's really interesting now because it's all done through a digital little kiosk. So, you're going to scan your passport, it's going to take your picture, and it's going to spit out a little card about the size of a business card, and you'll just keep that with you throughout your trip. If anybody traveling does not have a US or Canadian passport, just let Lane know and I'll work with her on how we can get you a visa. So your final document booklets that I talked about a little bit with the flights, those are typically going to be ready 2 weeks before your trip. So those will all be digital PDF documents. And so I'll get those to Lane, and then Lane will get them emailed out to you. So tangibles, so physical tangible items, we usually ship those out to her about 3 weeks before the trip. So those will include a name tag and a luggage tag. So those identify you when you get on the right bus, and our bus drivers care a lot about your safety. So they don't load any luggage on there that they have not identified. So having the luggage tag, and then you point to your bag. And then also having the name tag so they know you're allowed on the bus for the tour. You will have the same guide and driver for the whole tour. I know that question comes up sometimes. So after like day 3, they pretty much know who all of you are, and it's less of a concern. We'll also send you a study guide and a little travel wallet for you to keep. So that is everything for my presentation. I will stop sharing my screen here, and I will happily answer questions for anybody that wants to unmute and ask me a question.
Hi there. What are the dates that you're talking about?
Sure. So let me pull that back up. You guys are leaving May 23rd, which means your return date is going to be June 1st. So your passports would need to be good through December 1st.
And I haven't signed up for this. Would you mind telling me what the cost is?
All right. And you'd be coming from Nashville like everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Your trip cost would be $4,196 with the airfare from Nashville.
Young lady, I'm not going on this one, but I'm going to go on the one in November. And I live in next year. I live down here in Chattanooga. Can I fly out of Chattanooga to wherever? Like Chattanooga to Nashville to wherever?
Or just Chattanooga to Atlanta.
Or Chattanooga to Atlanta. I know you hadn't finalized that yet, but
Yeah,
save me a trip to Nashville.
I don't blame you there. It's quite a drive. We can fly you from Chattanooga up there. It's usually about $100 more than Nashville. So I would predict that next year it'd be $4,296 because we were able to keep the same price for the trip next year.
Cool.
That is real good, and it's worth it not to fool with groom. So are all the COVID cards and restrictions, all that mess gone?
Yes. It's so wonderful. Everything is gone. It's like normal. You're going to arrive at the Tel Aviv airport. You're going to go through the border control, passport control process. And like I said, again, because of COVID, they made it a digital system. So you get your little card and then somebody checks your card as you're exiting to go get your luggage. And since you guys would all be arriving in a group, because we're going to book your tickets to arrive at the same time, we have a service from a company called Smile. So they actually greet you and help you walk through all this process when you arrive in Tel Aviv. So you make it through passport control and to pick up your bag pretty quick.
Thank you.
For your cell phone charger, do you need an electric converter, international electric converter?
Most cell phone chargers, if you're using like the little brick that came in the box with it, usually they are dual voltage. So all you're going to need is a plug adapter, because in Israel, it's 3 round little prongs for the plug to be able to go into the wall. So most cell phone chargers, most laptop chargers, most electronics outside of like hair dryers and curling irons and straightening irons, most major electronics come with a dual voltage little box so that like Apple doesn't have to make 2 different versions. They can sell the same one, in Europe and the States. So because of that, it's nice and easy. But you want to double check. So always on any of those plugs or, chargers for devices, they always have that really tiny writing that you need like a huge magnifying glass for. You can look and see if it says that it works at 110 voltage up to 240 voltage. If it does, that means it's a dual voltage device. And so all you'll need is just a plug adapter. For anything else, or if you want to bring, a straightening iron, curling iron, or your own hair dryer, because you just really like yours, you're going to need a voltage converter for all of those things. And so you need something that's going to take the voltage from 240 down to 110. And just a quick search on Amazon, there's lots of nice products. I invested in for about $40. It's a little box about this big, and it's got 2 electrical outlets and then 4 USB plugs to be able to plug things into charge. But it's a little box and it's got the voltage adapter built into it, and it came with the right kind of plug on it. And that's just really handy. I highly recommend those.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. what type of education does our guide have?
It's actually college degree level. To be licensed as a guide, you have to study for 2 years, and you actually have to, it's almost like an apprenticeship. Like you have to go and work with another guide and follow them around and see it. And then you go and as part of your testing, you have to guide. So all of them are very highly educated in all the sites. The ones we work with, we're working with them because usually they've been guides for 10 years or longer. And once they start working with us, because we send about 20,000 people a year to Israel, we keep them busy, so they stay on with us. So a lot of our guides, like the one Lane had, Mike Tahan has guided for us for 25 years now, like just absolutely masterful, knows everything, all the ins and outs. And we purposely are hiring guides that have this kind of experience and that also understand that our groups are coming and they want the Christian perspective. So they don't want to learn about, their focus is not the history of Israel or what wars happened here or, even the Jewish events. They understand that you're here and you're trying to connect the site you're visiting to what you've read about in the Bible. So they really do an excellent job of that. They'll give you the other history and things as well, but they know that that's the focus and they do an excellent job at making those connections.
Hi, Bethany. Thank you for your presentation. It was great. I appreciate your perspectives and your time. But I have a question about what's the average tour size? Like how many people are on a tour, and do you use the larger tour buses or the mini tour buses?
Sure. So most of our buses are 50-seater, and we won't put more than 45 people on a bus. The average group size usually ends up being closer to 30. So you end up with room to, stretch out on the bus, and not everybody has to be right next to each other, which is nice for, like the one day you should have a longer bus day where you're transitioning from being in the northern Galilee area down to Jerusalem. And also because, if you did have 45 people on a bus, we use a whisper system. So everybody gets headsets and the guide has a microphone so that like, even if you're standing in the back of everybody, you're still going to be able to hear him perfectly clearly.
Thank you.
Anthony, this is Evelyn. Do you want to talk a little bit about the dinner we had in Bethlehem?
Sure. So on top of the option to go out to Masada and Dead Sea on your free day, you also have the opportunity to go out back into Bethlehem one evening and have dinner with a local Palestinian family. And so this is really neat. They do an awesome home cooked meal for you. You get to sit around and kind of do an Ask Me Anything, and they will talk about what their life is like on the other side of the wall that was built between Palestine and Israel, and just kind of like what it's like to be a Christian in a Muslim country and just the differences. It's very interesting because both sides have a lot of points and both sides have done things to each other. But on the Palestinian side, they can't even drive into Jerusalem without special papers. So they can't visit some of their holiest sites, whether they're Muslim or Christian, without getting special governmental permission. And they'll just kind of talk about what it's like to be a Christian over there, and they love sharing their faith and having this experience. So that's going to be an option that you guys, for an additional charge, you can go and do that one evening if you'd like. And then we also typically offer one evening while you're in Jerusalem, if you want to go and see the Sound and Light show at the City of David. So they project the whole history of the land of Israel up there at the archaeological site at the Tower of David. So that's kind of neat, and that would be the third optional trip.
What would be the cost of insurance for the trip?
I'll let Lane answer that one because I think you were using Alliance, right?
It's Evelyn, Bethany.
Evelyn.
Yeah, the Alliance that I typically quote, it's usually around 10% of the value of the trip. So if your trip is $4,000, it's going to be approximately $400 for your insurance premium. And when we were there in December, we were told that Israel was requiring a supplemental policy. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, there's still different forums and stuff saying that it's not required anymore to have a supplemental policy. You just need to make sure that it has at least $250,000 of medical coverage, which most any travel insurance does now. But honestly, like you experienced it. They didn't even bother checking. Like we made sure everybody had it, and then they didn't even check it at the airport. So.
Anybody is interested in insurance, once you get deposited, then I can email you an insurance quote. Or if you want to go get your own insurance, that's fine too. But I do recommend anytime you leave the country, you do need some travel insurance.
And I will second that. Just having traveled for many, many years with different groups and gone and done hospitality, half the time you'll never use the travel insurance, but when you do have an injury or something happens and you need to get home in an emergency, it's crazy not to have it because it can cost you. I've seen people, it costs $150,000 because they had a medical emergency and had to be flown back in first class with a nurse at the last minute. It can get really crazy.
Barbara Boyette here. Barbara, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm forgetting what I wanted to ask. Just a second. Thought of it twice. I'm older, so it comes and goes. Okay. Let me think again and I'll write it down. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Remember what I was going to ask.
Will we spend on the bus?
How much time will we spend on the bus?
Your longest days are when you are going to be doing the drive down from the Sea of Galilee to Jerusalem. So that's going to be closer to like 3 hours probably on the bus, but you're going to have it broken up by visiting sites like Megiddo and Caesarea. So, it's not a continuous, just 3 hours on the bus. And then when you go out to the Judean wilderness and you're going out to Jericho, that's a little longer drive from Jerusalem. That's closer to like 2 hours, but that's the worst of it. You're not going to do an all day on the bus, nonstop. And we try to break it up so that everyone has a chance to use, bathrooms. And the guides are excellent about warning you, like, okay, we're going to have an hour drive, to get over to this place. So go use the restroom and get prepared for it. But yeah, those are your 2 longest days, especially when you're around the Jerusalem and Bethlehem sites. They're not very far from each other. You're on the bus maybe 10, 15 minutes to get to the next site. Same thing when you're in the Sea of Galilee, most sites are close enough. They're within like 30 minutes of each other. So it's just your longer driving days are going to be the day when you're driving from the north down to kind of the middle where Jerusalem is. And then when you're going out from Jerusalem, we purposely kind of take you the long way. So you really get to see all of the Judean wilderness and all the farm and everything that's been built and developed out there when you're going out to Qumran and Jericho and places like that.
I thought about my question. Someone mentioned you're going again in November. Is that right? Can you hear me?
24.
What's 24?
November of 24.
Oh, November of 24. Okay. I didn't pick up on that. That's November 24. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the length of days. You mentioned the 2 longer ones, but what's the typical day engagement time? How many hours or start to finish?
Sure. Usually you're leaving 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning and you're going to get back, a little before dinner, around 5. So it's pretty full days of touring every day because we really try to pack in you seeing as much as humanly possible without, just killing you with run.
Super. Thank you. You mentioned a couple of add-ons, for example, the Dead Sea and other experiences. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. So the Dead Sea and Masada add-on, that would be a full day tour. So you'd probably leave around 9 o'clock in the morning. You would go out and you do about 2.5 hour tour of the site there at Masada. And it's really interesting and has a lot of unique history. It's not really a biblical site other than it was built by King Herod, but most of its history comes from during the Second Jewish Revolt. Some of the more intense fighters on the Jewish side, they all went up to Masada and they broke the ramp that you could get up. And so they kind of held it while the Romans were sieging all around them. And so when you're up on Masada, they've got some really interesting mosaics and clay pipes, so you can see how they used to heat everything. And it's quite a large site. But all around as you're looking over, because it's kind of up on a mountaintop, you can see all the outlines of stones from the old Roman camps. So you do that. And then we'll take you somewhere, and there's an included lunch that day. And then you spend, 2-3 hours at the Dead Sea. And then so you're getting back to Jerusalem still kind of around that same dinner time if you go out and do that day. For the Palestinian dinner, usually that is your second night that you're staying in Jerusalem. We offer that. You can sign up for it before the trip, or you can sign up for it over there if, you change your mind and decide you want to do it there. That's running $30 to $40 a person. And so we put everybody in kind of taxi vans, take you over to Bethlehem and set you up. So it's usually, we don't put more than 5 to 10 people with a family. So if, there's 30 people on your bus and everybody wants to do it, you'll be put with different families just so you're not totally overwhelming them with a bunch of people they have to cook for. And again, they cook a home cooked meal for you. You get the chance to sit and talk and hear about their lives. And so it's a really neat experience. And then the third option, the sound and light show, I want to say, I think it's going up to $30 now. It used to be $25, but we will load you guys all into buses and take you over there. So from where our hotels usually are, it's, 15, 20-minute bus ride just because of traffic. And we'll get you back into the old city, and it's there at the Tower of David. And so they project this whole kind of, I think it's 30, 40-minute show about the history of Israel up on the old city walls. So those are kind of your 3 optional additional things if you want to do something additional.
Thank you. Are there any pre-tour or post-tour add-ons?
Yes, there are post-tour options. So there is a 5-day add-on that you can go over to Jordan, which is where I just came back from. So when you do that, day 10, while everybody's flying home, you guys would have had an extra night there on day 9 in Jerusalem. Then we're going to wake you up. We'll take you to the border. You do all the border crossing, and your Jordan guide and driver are going to pick you up on the other side. And typically that first day, you'll go out to Mount Nebo and Madaba, or you may see Jerash. And then you usually stay in the Amman area. Then the next day, whichever one you didn't do, Jerash or Mount Nebo and Madaba, you would do that second day. And then you're going to end up staying the other nights at the Dead Sea. And it's the Crown Plaza Dead Sea, and it's absolutely gorgeous, world-class resort. So then on day 3, you end up doing a full day in Petra. So you'd get up early in the morning so that you guys can beat the crowds. And we typically give you 5 to 6 hours there. And even that's not enough if you wanted to fully hike through all the sites. But you can hike the full main trail, get to see the Treasury building, go down and see, some of the old Roman ruins and stuff, as well as, the huge just kind of temples and tombs that are all built into the mountains all through Petra. And then you'd go back, spend a night at the Dead Sea. And then day 4, because we typically will take you back across the border to fly home, but you'll have the whole morning free at the Dead Sea resort to enjoy it. They have a wonderful spa. You can go back out down to the Dead Sea and enjoy yourself there. And then after lunch, we're going to take you back across the border, take you over to Tel Aviv to fly home. So we usually will do a dinner stop in Jerusalem to kind of break it up, and then take you the rest of the way to the airport to fly home. The other 2 options that we have for post tours, We have one that's Cairo and the route of the Exodus. So that one is 6 days. And so you actually will drive down through the Negev in southern Israel, and then you're going to cross the border there in the Sinai area. So you'll spend the night in that area so that the next day you can get up and you can actually hike up if you want to see the sunrise on Mount Sinai. And you'll get to visit St. Catherine's Monastery that's there as well. So that was built at the site of the burning bush. Then you start working your way down, and it takes a full day to drive from there, unfortunately, over to Cairo. So you'll have a full, very long 2 days of driving on this trip. So you'll get to see some Old Testament sites related to Moses and Joseph along the way to Cairo. And then you do 2 very full days in and around Cairo. So one day is really devoted to the pyramids and getting to see the Sphinx. The other day, you're going to go out to Saqqara in Memphis and get to see the step pyramids there. You're going to have the third day, you go out to Wadi Faran and you see Mara by the Red Sea. So again, some more of the Old Testament kind of Joseph related sites, as well as we'll squeeze in, if they ever finally open it, we're hoping it opens finally this year. We've been waiting for it to open for 5 years, but the Grand Egyptian Museum. So they've built this beautiful complex and they've moved all the best antiquities out to it. And it's right by the pyramids. And it's going to be an absolutely amazing facility. We know people that have gone in and gotten to tour it already. But until they can have a big ceremony with dignitaries from all over the world, they've purposely not opened it all through COVID. So we're hoping this year they will finally open it and you guys could enjoy the Grand Egyptian Museum. The third option is to do a Nile cruise. So you actually go down with the Cairo group for the first 3 days. You're hanging out with them, but when they start seeing their sites in and around Cairo and the pyramids, you'll fly down to Luxor and you'll spend 4 nights on the river cruise. So it ends up adding 8 days to your trip, but you get 4 nights on the cruise from Luxor up to Aswan. So you get to see the Luxor and Karnak temples. You get to see the island of Fly. You get to go to Esna. You get to see the unfinished obelisk. You, of course, have the option to go and see a local Bedouin village there in Aswan, as well as see the Aswan Dam as options. And you get to see, of course, the valleys of the kings and queens, the Valley of the Kings being where King Tut's tomb was found. So you do all of that, and then you come back and do your Cairo sites at the end with 2 days in Cairo. So those are kind of the 3 optional add-on trips if you wanted to spend more time in Israel, or excuse me, in the Holy Land vicinity.
Yeah, thank you. And so could you say again, the Nile cruise option was how many extra days? It was 4 nights on the cruise and then...
Yeah, because you've got the couple nights in the Sinai area and then a couple nights, 2 nights there in Cairo. So it really ends up adding about 8 days to your trip.
Okay, super, thanks.
Somebody wanted to upgrade their flights to like premium or business class. Can you talk about how that works?
Sure. So anybody that's interested in upgrading your flights, we can quote you the cost to upgrade your flights and still fly with the group on the group tickets. We typically don't answer those requests until about 45 days prior, the 60 to 30 day range when we're finalizing flights. So then we would send those quotes to Evelyn and she would get with you guys and say, okay, this is what they're quoting if you want to upgrade your flights. If you don't want to wait that long and risk the upgrade not being available, we also have the option that you can just book the trip as land only and you can do your own flights and try to just match up so that you can take the group transfers.
Any more questions for Bethany?
Well, I jumped on late. Let me ask you what was the cost per person again?
Sure. From Nashville, it was $4,196.
Okay. And that's 10 days?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that cost does include some of the tours, right?
It includes all of the tours except day 8, which is the free day, and you have the option for $75 more. You can do Masada and the Dead Sea, but otherwise it includes the other 7 days of touring while you're there.
Okay.
And just real quick, I'll cover everything that's kind of built into the cost. So you've got breakfast and dinner every day. You've got your guide and driver that'll be with you for the entire time. The motor coaches are quite nice. They've got Wi-Fi on board, comfortable, good air conditioning. They're all usually like 5 years old or less. So everything's really baked into the price and taken care of with that $4,196, except optional things like the tours we talked about. If you want to take out trip insurance, the lunches, which are about $20 a day roughly, and then tips for the guide and driver, and then, you know, of course, souvenirs, personal expenses, things like that. But you've got the 2 meals, the breakfast and dinner at the hotel, which are buffet style every day.
And do you have a brochure that, or some information that we can get from Evelyn's website or somewhere showing us each day's breakdown for the 10 days?
Mm-hmm.
That's some brochures. I'll give one to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
She said she has some brochures and she will get one to you.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, last call for any more questions. I'm going to take that as a no, and I am going to thank you all for your time today. It was wonderful to get to
Last
share
question.
this program with you.
Thank
And
you.
I'll let Evelyn say goodbye to everybody.
We had one last question over here.
Sure.
Is what's the last day to sign up?
The last day to sign up is going to be right around the end of February for you guys. That's kind of when our cutoff is. You can still sign up after that, but it's going to be based on availability, if we can get additional hotel rooms and that kind of stuff. So, you know, if you're thinking about, you might want to put down a deposit with Evelyn, you know, if you did that by the end of this month would probably be the best idea. And then, of course, we'll be opening up, you know, the 2024 trip here in a few weeks. Thank you guys all for being here. You have a great evening.
Well, I'm sure you'll agree with me. Bethany did a great job answering a lot of questions and sharing information tonight. If you have any other questions that we did not touch on, feel free to give me a call at 931-247-5040, or you can email me, lcurlee@cruiseplanners.com. I'd be more than happy to get you additional brochures if you want to share with your friends. And if you have any questions, be sure and give me a call. And I hope you can join me in the Holy Land.